Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers vehicle codes, color of law, and crime enforcement, and is brought to us by FZing Crazy Auditors channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, the Commuter 2 speaker from Cove. The Commuter 2 is the most functional and creatively ergonomic Bluetooth speaker I have ever used. Not only does the Commuter feature excellent build quality and a sleek finish, but it also has a ton of features hidden within its design. The Commuter can last for 7 hours on a single charge. It has a water-resistant rating of IPX7 and has a built-in microphone for taking calls. But best of all, the Commuter splits into 2 speakers, giving you full stereo audio. While connected, the Commuter speakers offer a 360 surround sound effect, and when separated, the speakers convert into left and right stereo channels, which makes it perfect for going from your desk setup to your laptop or TV. Right now, Cove is offering members of the ATA community a 67% discount when you use code AUDIT64 at checkout, or click on the link in the description. Thanks again to Cove for sponsoring this episode. On November 19th, 2020, YouTuber and First Amendment auditor Cody Shear was riding his motorcycle through El Dorado County in Middle Eastern California when he was stopped by Officer Bliss of the California Highway Patrol.
Turn my radio down.
Can I see your driver's license, registration, and insurance, please?
So what are you pulling me over for?
The GoPro on your helmet.
The GoPro on my helmet.
Yeah, the fixture, the mounting for not grid.
What's wrong with it?
You're not allowed to have that on your helmet. You can't have anything protrude more than 2 millimeters off the surface of the helmet.
That's a crime?
It's not a crime, it's an infraction.
Okay, so you pulled me over for a non-crime?
It's an infraction, it's a moving violation. You can't have anything on your helmet. It compromises the integrity. Can I have the information I asked you for, please?
Actually, sir, I mean, the fact that you pulled me over for a traffic violation of a GoPro on the top of my helmet, which is for my safety, it's kind of ridiculous. I will not be consenting to anything. So
Okay.
if you need to get a sergeant out here, that'd be great. But,
What's your name?
did I commit a crime?
I've stopped you for a traffic violation.
Okay.
I've asked you for your information, you're refusing to give it to me.
I'm not refusing to give it to you. It's just that I did not commit a crime. And you pulled me over for a GoPro on my helmet,
And it's a traffic violation.
which is for my safety.
Okay. Do you understand what I stopped you
What's
for?
your name and badge number? Bliss, what's your badge number?
You answer my question, and
What-
I'll answer
what is,
yours.
What is
okay?
your badge number, sir?
But you answer my questions?
I'm cooperating so far. I pulled
No, you're
her over.
not. You have not produced your driver's license. You have not produced your registration.
Because
you've not
you
produced
pulled
your
me
insurance.
over for not a crime. And in fact, it's the stupidest thing you can pull me over for is that freaking camera.
Is speeding a crime?
A camera
Is
on
speeding
my
a,
helmet.
Is speeding a crime?
A camera on my helmet, sir.
Answer my question. Is speeding
I'm
a
not
crime?
answering any more questions. I'd like to speak to my lawyer.
Can I have your information, please?
You can get your sergeant.
Sit tight.
Officer Bliss informs Mr. Shear that he was stopped because of the camera that is mounted on his helmet, and Mr. Shear insists that it is not against the law. But the legality of mounting foreign objects to a motorcycle helmet is somewhat vague and varies from location to location. There are 19 states which have drafted laws requiring the use of helmets while riding motorcycles, while 28 other states have partial laws on the books. And in Illinois, Iowa, and New Hampshire, helmets are not required at all. Given that the landscape of helmet regulation is particularly diverse, it is safe to assume that cities and codes may also have local rules and regulations that establish different requirements. California Vehicle Code 27802 grants the California Department of Motor Vehicles the ability to adopt reasonable regulations establishing specifications and standards for helmets that are sold in California. And the code cites Section 571.218 of the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards as the minimum standard by which helmets should be constructed and used. Subsection 5.5 of the Federal Code states that a helmet shall not have any rigid protections inside its shell, and that rigid protections outside any helmet shell shall be limited to those required for operation of essential accessories, and shall not protrude more than 5 millimeters. This is likely the code Officer Bliss is using for the basis of his stop. However, subsection 1 defines the scope of the code to apply specifically to the helmets as they are designed by the manufacturer. This suggests that the code has no authority over what a private citizen does to a helmet once it is designed and sold by the manufacturer. Subsection 3 reiterates this argument by plainly stating that this standard applies to all helmets designed for use by motorcyclists and other motor vehicle users. It is clear that this code is intended for manufacturers because it is primarily dedicated to highly specific safety regulations and testing standards that are applied during the design and development of helmets, such as impact attenuation testing and helmet positioning indexing. It appears as though Officer Bliss is attempting to enforce the authority of a code that only applies to manufacturers, and after failing to convince Mr. Scheer to comply, the officer returned to his patrol car for a brief moment before confronting Mr. Scheer again.
Hey, I just want to let you know that I'm also recording this stop.
Of course
and
you
I've
are.
asked you numerous times for your information and you're refusing to do so.
I'm not refusing. If I committed a crime, I would absolutely give you my ID.
All right. You've been stopped for a traffic violation,
I got stopped for a GoPro on my helmet.
and I've told you it's a traffic violation.
That's a violation. So go ahead and get your sergeant here.
Okay, I've told you it's a violation, so you're still refusing to produce your information.
If
when
you
you've been
can
informed that you've
articulate a crime that I have committed, I will ID. Until then, I do not have to ID. And in fact, this is a violation of my Fourth Amendment right, and I am now invoking Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. If you do one more movement without getting your sergeant here, you're...
Here, Mr. Scheer informs Officer Bliss that he is invoking Title 18, Section 242, and that the officer should be wary of his actions moving forward. Title 18 of the United States Code serves as the central criminal code for the federal government and covers both federal crimes and the federal criminal procedure. Section 242 of Title 18 is the federal code that criminalizes the act of willfully depriving a person of a right or privilege protected by the Constitution or other laws while acting under the color of any law. The phrase, color of law, includes acts not only done by federal, state, or local officials within their lawful authority, but also acts done beyond the bounds of that official's authority if the official is pretending to act in the performance of their duties. The code is designed to protect citizens from government officials and punish those officials whose misconduct results in a deprivation of rights or suffering. Section 242 originated from Section 2 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and although the code has been amended and moved around the codebook several times, its core principles remain relatively unchanged. Under the current version of the code, violations of Section 242 are punishable by everything from fines to the death penalty, depending on the severity of the crime. To secure a criminal conviction under Section 242, the plaintiff must establish three elements. 1. The defendant acted under color of law. 2. The defendant acted willfully. And 3. The defendant deprived the victim of rights under the Constitution or federal law, or subjected the victim to different punishments on account of the victim's race, color, or alien status. It is important to note that Section 242 provides no private right of enforcement, meaning that victims of official misconduct cannot sue under the code, but may seek civil recourse through a different statute. Victims of police misconduct who wish to file criminal charges against an officer under Section 242 must also file a claim under Section 1983 of Title 42 if they are seeking compensation for the officer's acts along with criminal prosecution. Given that Section 242 is an established and clearly defined code, it is not necessary to invoke its authority during a stop. But there is also likely no harm done in acknowledging its existence, as Mr. Scheer has demonstrated.
Did you hear me?
Did you hear me? Get your sergeant here. I'm done speaking to you. I told you I am done talking. I am now invoking my Fifth Amendment right to stay silent. Thank you.
If you fail to produce your information,
then what? You're going to arrest me?
You're in jeopardy of being
so that'd
placed
be
under
kidnapping,
arrest.
and I already invoked Title 18, Section 242.
How is that kidnapping?
You'll find that out in court, sir.
You're failing to identify
You'll find that out in court.
Are you familiar with?
Are you getting your sergeant?
Are you familiar with Section Penal Code 148?
Are you not listening to a lawful order?
Are you listening
Call
to my lawful order?
your sergeant. You are not. This traffic stop is unlawful, especially since I told you this is a violation of my Fourth Amendment right.
Okay.
And you pulled me over for a GoPro,
which I've told you is a traffic violation.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stay right here, and I'm staying silent.
Okay.
Until I speak to my lawyer.
Do you really want to go to jail?
Do you not want to get your sergeant?
I've called him.
Okay, good. Well,
I'm
I'm staying silent until he's here and I talk to him.
Okay.
Bliss, please step away from me with your badge, your gun, and your fake costume. I'll be right here.
Okay.
Officer Bliss returns to his patrol car, and deputies from the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office arrive on the scene minutes later. After two of the deputies fail to reason with Mr. Scheer for several minutes, El Dorado County Sergeant Lee arrives on the scene.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Morning.
So what's going on?
So it was a great day.
Okay.
Okay, I was just out enjoying my day, and I got pulled over for having a GoPro on my helmet.
Okay.
Okay, and so I let Bliss know that, you know, this is a violation of my Fourth Amendment right. The fact that I was just traveling, I was following all the rules and laws of the road and just traffic safety and nothing. And then he gets behind me and pulls me over for a GoPro and tries to tell me that that's a violation of whatever code. What safety code? What does it even matter? You know, what if I had a fin on my helmet? What if I put my visor up? Is that now a violation of the traffic code? Like, look how close my visor is being as high as my GoPro. What violation, what crime have I committed? Please tell me.
Okay, so you're in violation of the California Vehicle Code that says you can't have that mounted on your helmet like that.
Okay, so can you
It's
tell
as
me
simple
what
as
code that is?
Pardon?
What code is that?
Pardon? I don't know, what code is it? Look it up
Okay,
for you,
look that up and also tell me what crime I
regardless-
committed.
Regardless, it's an infraction.
Okay,
It's like speeding.
and I'll see him in court.
Correct.
Absolutely.
need
And
your
it's gonna be a
we
fun
need
day in
your-
court. Make sure you're ready for a full day, buddy.
Right, and we need your information.
So I need your
I
driver's
have not
license,
committed a
registration
crime.
information.
A crime. Do you know what a crime is?
Do you understand what we're saying? We just
I
need
see.
your
I understand. Is what I just did a misdemeanor or a felony?
It's an infraction.
Exactly.
Infraction.
There's no crime in an infraction. Therefore, I
So
have no
we need
reason.
to have your driver's license
Look,
so we can
look,
identify
here's the
you
thing.
and write
I
all
technically
that stuff
don't even
down
need
on
this
there.
license plate.
Okay.
I don't even need a driver's license. Okay, it's the Fourth Amendment. This is my property on public roads, and I'll make sure you understand that in court. Okay, my lawyer will definitely make sure you understand that. But when I'm pulled over, if I haven't committed a crime, I do not have to ID. He shouldn't even be pulling me over unless it's a crime. And I understand that you guys have a job, and you're not used to being told that. But some people do know their rights.
Mr. Shear tells the officers that he would identify himself if he were suspected of a crime, and implies that an infraction is not a crime. Most states recognize 3 distinct categories of criminal charges, and California is no exception. The most serious crimes are known as felonies, and they typically carry a sentence of greater than 1 year of imprisonment. Felony charges generally involve acts of violence or grand theft. Misdemeanors are less serious than felonies, and the punishment for misdemeanor violations depends upon the seriousness of the crime. Misdemeanors carry a sentence of up to 1 year in jail along with applicable fines, and may result in additional punishment such as a license suspension. Infractions are the least serious crimes and are not punishable by jail time. However, because infractions carry no risk of incarceration, citizens are not entitled to legal representation or a trial by jury. Infractions are usually punishable via a fine, but citizens may also receive community service depending on the violation. Common examples of infractions include traffic tickets, noise ordinance violations, and jaywalking. Some statutes can be charged as either an infraction or a misdemeanor at the prosecutor's discretion. These laws are typically referred to as woblets. The Supreme Court has routinely recognized that officers have the authority to stop and investigate citizens who they reasonably suspect have committed an infraction or any other crime. And California has drafted specific laws regarding the enforcement of infractions. California Penal Code 19.7 states that all provisions of law relating to misdemeanors shall apply to infractions, including but not limited to powers of peace officers, jurisdiction of courts, periods for commencing action, and for bringing a case to trial and burden of proof. This code essentially grants California officers the ability to enforce infractions with the same degree of authority as misdemeanors. So if Officer Bliss had stopped Mr. Shear for a legitimate infraction, then he would be required to present his identification and follow all the standard protocols for any other police interaction. And although this stop is likely invalid, it would still be in Mr. Shear's best interest to comply with the officers now and dispute the stop later in court.
Okay, I'm one of those very few people.
So are you not going to give us your ID or anything?
Okay, so you're gonna threaten me with jail?
I just asked you a question.
Would I go to jail if I don't ID?
Would you go to jail if you don't have ID?
Are you gonna arrest
You're
me?
gonna have to ID.
Is this a threat of arrest if I don't ID?
I'm asking you, are you going to give us your ID?
And I'm asking you, am I gonna be taken to jail if I don't
Why do you keep
ID?
asking a question with a question? He asked you a question. Answer the question.
You are my servant.
Okay?
I am not your. Okay. I'm just asking you a question. Before I answer a question, are you threatening me
I'm not
with
threatening you at all.
arrest?
I want to know whether you're
No,
going to
with
provide us
with an
your
arrest.
identification so he can fill out his citation, so then we can give you a summons to go to court, so then you can come to court and then talk to the judge about it.
You know how easy it is for him to just put his tail between his legs and say, "Take that off your helmet." So what happens? What I'm asking is, what happens if I don't give you the ID?
Well, we need to satisfactorily identify you.
Okay. For
So
what?
we can do that right there,
Uh huh.
okay? Or you can go in, run your fingerprints, and do all that kind of good stuff. in
So
which case
you
we
are
would have to
threatening me
take you
with
to jail.
arrest,
I'm not threatening you
booking,
with anything. I'm
with
asking
booking,
you to
putting
give
me in the
your
back,
ID so
probably
we
putting
can take care
handcuffs
of our
on me.
business. Will you provide us with your
So,
identification?
am I being detained right now?
will you provide us with your, yes, you're being
Okay,
detained.
so I'm being detained.
Yes.
I'm being threatened with an arrest.
Not being threatened.
Oh, booking. I'm being threatened with being booked, okay? By, is it Sergeant?
Yes.
Sergeant Lee,
Yes.
because of tyrannical bliss. I'm gonna hand this over.
Thank you.
There you go. Identify who you already have identified. And I'll see you in court.
After surrendering his ID and delivering a few choice words to Officer Bliss, Mr. Scheer was cited for motorcycle safety, and the officers eventually left the scene without further incident. Mr. Scheer told me that he intends to file complaints against the officers, and he is still waiting for his citation to appear in the state's registry. He also told me that he intends to take legal action against the officers, but he is waiting to see whether the ticket is actually filed or not. If you would like to stay up to date on Mr. Scheer's story, then I highly recommend following his YouTube channel, which is linked in the description below. Overall, Officer Bliss and the El Dorado deputies get a C-, because although they were relatively courteous and peaceful, the officers displayed a fundamental misunderstanding of the law and detained and cited Mr. Scheer for a code that applies to helmet manufacturers, not private citizens. Officer Bliss approached this stop with a measure of confidence that was built upon a misconception about the law, and his willingness to issue a citation demonstrates the scope of his misunderstanding. If this stop were to be challenged in court, it is likely that Officer Bliss would be entitled to qualified immunity, given that the laws and regulations surrounding helmet-mounted cameras are relatively new. But that does not excuse his decision to issue Mr. Scheer a citation. If Officer Bliss had taken a moment to make certain that he was interpreting the code correctly, then the escalation of this stop could have been avoided entirely. All of the officers involved in this interaction have a plethora of resources available to them to ensure that they carry out their duties correctly. But none of the El Dorado deputies questioned Officer Bliss's conduct, and Sergeant Lee openly admitted that he did not know what law Mr. Scheer was breaking. Although the officers remained cordial throughout this encounter, their police work was sloppy at best, and will likely result in the charges against Mr. Scheer being dropped. Mr. Scheer gets a B+, because although he did a great job of remaining calm and challenging Officer Bliss's charges, he also failed to effectively invoke his right to silence, remained relatively hostile throughout the interaction, and displayed a fundamental misunderstanding of criminal infractions. As mentioned on many episodes of ATA, it is always best to comply with an officer's demands, even if you believe them to be unlawful, so that you can build the best possible case against an officer in the event that misconduct occurs. Mr. Scheer's decision to comply with the officers allowed him to avoid going to jail while still maintaining the possibility of subsequent legal action. It should be noted that a significant portion of this encounter was edited out of this episode for the sake of brevity, but in the full version, Mr. Scheer makes several comments to the El Dorado deputies that suggested that he subscribes to sovereign citizen-like ideologies. After personally speaking with Mr. Scheer, I got the sense that he is somewhat well-informed about constitutionalism as a whole, but is still developing his own personal philosophies about what the Constitution means to him and how its protections function on a practical level. Mr. Scheer told me that he does not consider himself a sovereign citizen, but he does believe that some of their ideas hold merit. There are pros and cons to all philosophies, and Mr. Scheer's personal belief system has no bearing on his grade. What matters here is how he conducted himself and the legality of his actions. I commend Mr. Scheer for following up this interaction with the proper legal action, but a more professional attitude would certainly serve him well in court. It'll be interesting to see how Mr. Scheer's case develops, and don't forget to check out his channel to follow along for yourself. Let us know if there's an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more police interaction content.